Hi, everybody. We're very lucky to have with us today Dr. Luana Marquez. She's an associate professor of psychiatry at Harvard Medical School and the director of community psychiatry Pride at Massachusetts General Hospital. I was going to say Mass General because that's what everybody knows it as, but Massachusetts General Hospital. She's also a national and international expert in cognitive behavior therapies, which is a fancy way of saying she's going to help us all get through COVID-19 stress and anxiety, and she's going to help all of our employers to help their employees, and in return, help the customer service or the clients, whatever's used with your company, going to help everybody out here. So I'm going to let you, Dr. Marquez, tell them a little bit more about all of your wonderful expertise. Go into your presentation, and we can't thank you enough. I know how busy you are, and I loved your TED Talk, by the way. So thank you so very much, and enjoy, everyone.
Thank you, Patty, for having me. I'm Dr. Luana Marquez. I'm a clinical psychologist. I'm really passionate about the idea of sharing cognitive behavior therapy, which is a science-driven strategy as skills for all of us, especially during this pandemic. Today, I'm going to talk about working through anxiety, really share with you tips that are really science-driven that will help you, your employers, and the folks that you're serving to be able to bring our temperature down and work with our brain. For all of us, the world as we knew it has changed, and most of us are feeling uneasy at one point or another. And as many of us consider returning to work, there's a lot of hesitation, and most folks are somewhat anxious about what does this new normal will look like. What happens to our brain when we see a real threat, COVID-19 being a real and invisible threat, in addition to the economic downturn? Our brain gets activated, specific, the fight or flight part of our brain, our limbic system turns on, and immediately a response to our body happens. Our heart pounds a little more, you tense up, your pupils contract, you're ready to fight, or freeze. A biologically adaptive response to a real threat. I like to think about this threat response in a spectrum of anxiety or arousal. Based on the Yerkes-Dodson law, we know that there is an inverse relationship between our arousal, our anxiety level, and our ability to perform, not only in our jobs, but in our life in general. At the low end of this curve here in the left, we have really low arousal, and that also leads to low performance. Think about this way. When you show up at work in the morning, sometimes many of us will drink a cup of coffee. You may be feeling a little sluggish, but after that cup of coffee, your arousal increases. Your brain focuses a little more, and you may find yourself more in the zone. Here is where there's typical, this is where there is a strong level of arousal and performance. So you're sort of in that perfect place. As we've moved on, and actually in the workplace, what this looks like is this ability of sort of really being flowing. Some of us may have experienced this in team meetings before COVID-19, when you're brainstorming a solution to a problem and your brain is just flowing. But as we've moved on from acute to chronic stress, many of us have found our brains spinning a little bit. In fact, over 2/3 of Americans are worried about second wave of coronavirus this fall. So as we enter this, we may have found ourselves a little off of the zone, but as the stress has moved from acute to chronic, many of us are experiencing heightened levels of stress and anxiety. That's when we get more to the right side of this curve, when anxiety becomes a little too much and it becomes difficult to focus. You may notice that your impaired performance at your work. A survey made by the Anxiety and Depression Association suggests that this heightened level of stress and anxiety has a significant negative impact in the workplace, with about 45 to 50% of individuals suggesting that Stress and anxiety negatively affect the performance at work. It leads to difficulties in relationships with coworkers, may decrease the quality of work, and may create tension in their relationships with supervisors. So what do we do about this? Well, the first step is to identify if you are off the zone and then the second step is to get back to the zone. So as a supervisor, as an employer, thinking about things that you may notice for yourself as a way to identify them on the people that you work with. The first piece that you might notice is that when the brain's on that fight or flight, our thinking may change. You may find yourself saying to yourself pretty black and white statements, getting stuck on your own thinking. You may say something like, nothing good will come out of this. I'll never make the right decision again. There's nothing I can do to protect my family. Some of those thoughts have some reality to them, but when we get into this black and white kind of thinking, our brain starts to spin, and pretty soon we start to feel restless, tense, tired, hopelessness. So the change in our thinking affects how we feel our emotions, and that tends to affect what we do. Many of us may have moments that you find yourself glued to your phone, trying to get some certainty, trying to understand what's going on in the world. Alternatively, you may have found that this heightened arousal and stress may make it very difficult for you to get out of bed in the morning. You may have found yourself more sluggish, trying to sort of really having to activate yourself to get into the workday. This is something that many of us in the US are experiencing. In fact, 1/3 of Americans are reporting signs of clinical levels of anxiety and depression. And for our frontline workers, this is even more significant. Although data in the US is not available, data coming out of China illustrate the impact of this pandemic among healthcare workers. So in this survey of 1,257 healthcare workers across 34 hospitals in China, what we see is an elevated level of stress, depression, anxiety, and insomnia. So what do we do about this? Well, it's really important to activate a different part of our body, to activate our frontal cortex, the thinking part of our brain. So we're really going to talk about strategies based on cognitive behavioral therapy, short CBT. CBT is an evidence-based, scientifically sound form of therapy that has been examined across many, many different studies. And on average, most people respond to CBT. Now, I'm not here to teach all of you to become therapists. The idea here and what we've done in our research lab here at Mass General Hospital and Harvard Medical School is to translate these therapies into skills and to really think about what are the science-driven skills that can help you cool off your brain no matter where you are. And today, I'm going to broadly speak about 4 different sets of skills that you can apply for yourself, and you can also teach your employees so that they can practice in real time in moments of stress. We'll talk about anchoring, unplugging and anchoring, charging up, staying connected, and being of service. Why should we unplug? And when unplug, I mean to get off of the nose, to get off of our computers, to give our brain a little bit of a break. Why should we do this? Well, research shows us that after the Boston Marathon bombing, individuals that spend 6+ hours a day watching the news had significant more stress response than those that were actually there. So basically, being turned on, plugged on all the time is activating our fight or flight part of our brain, the opposite that what we want to do during the pandemic. So to cool off your brain, how do you go about it? Well, first you need to unplug. And the idea here would be to really limit your news consumption. One suggestion that I give to my patients is to anchor back on what you did before the pandemic started. So if you're the kind of person that watches the news twice a day, trying to limit that consumption to that. And that guideline is consistent with the WHO guideline of how much news we should be uptaking during this pandemic. Now, your brain might still be inactivated. You may still have that sense of uncertainty. You may still be thinking about, what do I do then if I'm not really getting connected with the news? Here is where I suggest that you anchor on something that's good for you. really to try to fight that idea of Zoom fatigue and being in front of the computer all the time. So something like going for a walk or being able to sort of do something that nurture yourself, like having a cup of tea, helping your brain to slow down, to really take a break. The second set of skills that are extremely important and not optional is to be able to really think about how do we charge up our body. And the three skills here are eating, sleeping, and exercise. We must charge up our bodies because our bodies are like the batteries of our car. Without driving, our batteries die. And so we must actually spend energy to get energy. For some of us, this is doable. For some of us, it may be more challenging. You may not have access to those things. So really, I encourage you to think about, how do I keep moving my body? But let's talk a little bit about the science between each one of those. We know that eating regularly, the best ability you can, allows you to actually make your brain more flexible, increases your memory, allows you to learn better. So there's actually benefits to your brain by eating regularly. Now, during the pandemic, sometimes it's hard. I've had several of my coworkers say, listen, I'm sitting in front of the computer, I'm working nonstop, I'm from Zoom call, Next thing you know, it's 4 o'clock and I haven't eaten. So that's when it's important to help your brain. One suggestion I have is to actually plan your eating and be able to sort of say, you know what, if I am the kind of person that I forget eating, put an alarm, get up and make sure that you have food available that you can eat. Eating also can be an opportunity for social support, to be able to connect with your coworkers and be able to say, listen, I know we can't be in the same place, but perhaps we can have lunch together once a week, allowing you to feel connected to your community, but also ensuring that your body is charging up its batteries. Sleep is something that most of us have heard is also very important. But sleep is not only important, it's crucial, because sleep deprivation actually has been shown scientifically to activate your limbic system, your fight or flight part of your brain, which actually gets you off the zone. So we really want to try to focus on sleeping. There's a second reason why sleeping is extremely important this pandemic, because lack of sleep also affects your immune system. And as many of us have heard, having a strong immune system is one of the things we possibly can control in the event we do have to fight this virus. Although sleep is challenging, there are a few things that you can do to try to help yourself have better sleep hygiene. The first is really based on this idea of decreasing screen time. This is especially important as we get really close to bedtime. Sometimes a small snack before bed can be helpful. If you can't sleep for 20 minutes or more, get out of bed and really try to do something soothing for yourself. And finally, trying the best ability to maintain a regular sleep schedule. Now, that does not mean you have to go to bed at 10 p.m. and you wake up at 6 a.m. For each one of us, our sleep cycle may look different. What's most important, especially during stressful times, is for you to really find the best ability to try to bookend in a way that there is some consistency. So your brain knows to expect when you're going to bed and when you're waking up. Finally, exercise has been well documented to decrease depression and increase well-being. And it also helps with our ability to have a stronger immune system. So behavior activation, meaning charging up, meaning getting moving, combined with really exercise, has shown to really boost your immune system. I know exercise can be hard, but many of us have seen across the world, people take the opportunity to just move, nurses celebrating when a patient is doing better, families doing yoga with their little ones at home. So really, I urge you to think about exercise, not as going to the gym, not as something that you have to do, but something that you choose to do to boost your immune system, to charge your battery, to get you back to the zone. Next, let's talk briefly about the power of staying connected. Unfortunately, this pandemic has led to a lot of social isolation. And we know that isolation can actually lead to more depression and more anxiety. However, staying connected can increase life satisfaction and can also decrease depression and anxiety. So this study here shows that face-to-face or Facebook connection were able to actually have better life satisfaction. Now, I'm not saying that the Facebook connection or through Zoom connection is the solution. I'm suggesting that in this instance, when we can't be together, ensuring social connection is one way to stay ahead of any mental difficulties, emotional difficulties, and also to boost your ability to get back to the zone. So how do we do this? Well, we've been really privileged in some ways that since the beginning of the pandemic, many of us had a steep learning curve, but learned Zoom or Slack or Facebook or FaceTime. And so urging you to really thinking about using social media to stay connected, with the caveat that I started by suggesting that you also needed to unplug a little bit. So maybe scheduling those things and ensuring that you're not on all the time, so that you're balancing that ability to help your brain by staying connected, but also unplugging so that you can cool off your brain. Finally, let's talk about being of service. Why is it important to be of service in this moment in time? Because we know it leads to less depression, it leads to happiness, and allows us to live better lives. And how can you be of service in your own organization? So when you think about being a manager or being the leader, how can you be of service? I think there are three things you can do. First is encourage coworkers to check in with each other, to really be able to create the sense of community and to support each other. So if you know there's a coworker that is struggling or needs extra support, perhaps sending some food to their house or being able to sort of being there to support them. Second, to express empathy. So even just to be able to listen to each other or to listen to the people that you're supervising and be able to express that it's okay not to be okay right now. It's challenging times and our brain is on fight or flight. So at times you might hit a wall, and to be able to say to somebody, I get it, it's tough, but we are here together. And finally, to reach out to colleagues. Sometimes in moments like this, we are just spinning to get things done, to manage the multiple parts of our lives, our home life, our professional life, which have been really contaminated intensively, that we might forget to check in with other folks. So a suggestion that I've made for managers all over is to make sure, to the best of your ability, to have some individual check-ins. They could be little, but to check on mental wellness. We're not talking about really crossing the line here to mental health, but just mental wellness. Be able to say, listen, I learned that, unplugging and anchoring, charging up, and being of service, staying connected are important. I suggest you do those things. So reaching out and making sure that people feel connected. The good news is that we are resilient and we're going to get through this. We know from research, from decades of research, that at least 50% of people who go through very difficult situations are resilient and bounce back. And with the skills that I shared today, my hope is that you're really building a toolbox to really build your own internal resilience, to get your brain back to the zone so that you can perform the best you can in all domains of your life. How does resilience look in a workplace? Our research lab here at Mass General has really thought a lot about this. And we really believe that a resilient workplace is through alignment, and in this case, through alignment on mental wellness. So for example, ensuring that from the leadership to the individuals they're serving, that they have access to webinars like this, that there are conversations about this, that people learn skills, not therapy, to build their toolbox and help their brain get back to the zone. That's exactly what we actually do here at Mass General. We train organizations, entire organizations, from leadership to the individuals they serve, on evidence-based, science-driven skills. We have online trainings, we have online coaching, and we have a platform that we help you deliver those skills. If you're interested, there's additional resources that are helpful to all. Not only those in leadership, but for those that are helping in HR. We created webinars with Harvard Health Publishing and Harvard Medical School. We're going to have an online course being released by the first week of July that actually dive in on those skills that we train organizations all over. And that's going to be available for free to all. and we're hoping to do in several languages. And additionally, you can also have global resources in my own website. We also created brief videos that are going to be released in the end of June that basically are 2-minute short videos on mental wellness. How do you do your mental wellness in 3 easy steps? I encourage you to actually share this with your colleagues. One of the things that we're planning to do here with my team at Mass General or several other teams that we're coaching is to use this as icebreakers and to think about, okay, if you're going to charge up your body, what are the 3 things you need to do? And can your team commit to doing that together? I want to thank my team here at Mass General who did an incredible job putting this presentation together. And I want to thank each one of you who spent this time with me learning the skills. I really hope that you and your family are well, and I look forward to connecting with each one of you. You can find a lot more information about my practice and some of the service we provide at drluana.com. Thank you.